Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Denver. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Reed Duke. We're underway here in round number 14. Reed, this is, of course, when things start to get really intense out there on the tournament floor. Just a couple more rounds until we cut to our top 8. Every match counts, especially when you're in the position that these two players are in. Jeremy Prix versus Ben Hull. They're both sitting at 11-2, and they do not have a loss to give, and probably not even a draw to give either.
You're right. This is where it gets the most tense. So we recognize Ben Hull, no stranger to pressure. He was in the top 4 of Pro Tour Kaladesh with a very similar red-white beatdown deck.
Seems to have found his groove here. He's got so many pro points from that finish that he's decided to venture out onto the GP trail in pursuit of even more pro points. Now, both players on 2 lands, but Ben seems to have made a little bit more of his mana here with a pair of Thraben Inspectors, Toolcraft Exemplar, and there's also a Spirit there. Jeremy Prix actually had a decent start himself, though. Turned to Smuggler's Copter and a Reflector Mage after that.
Wow, so Jeremy Prix has a very cool deck here.
Yeah, it says Blue-White Eldrazi. What is up? What's up with that?
Well, he's also playing a Blue-White Panharmonicon deck with lots of enters the battlefield value triggers, but he does not appear to be a part of the team consisting of Seth Manfield and Pascal Maynard, who are also doing well with a different Blue-White Panharmonicon deck.
Yeah, John Stern.
Yeah, John Stern as well. The key differences are, as you mentioned, the Eldrazi's. Jeremy Pri's curve stretches all the way up to Drowner of Hope, and he has 4 Shrine of the Forsaken Gods.
Wow. He has Cloud Blazers, right? I mean,
yeah, he still has Cloud Blazers. Don't worry, Marshall.
Yeah, all right. As long as he has that, I'm fine. The Reflector Mage is doing their job here, holding down the fort. He did take some damage early, though. Finds himself at 12 life, but looking pretty stable at the moment.
Yeah,
perhaps a trade opportunity here.
Ben Hull only just found his 3rd land.
The Smuggler's Copter is going to get activated and hit the red zone. He's resolving his loot right now, and then Jeremy's going to decide if he'd like to trade. He would. Ben says, yes, you may activate that, but once you do, I'm going to stasis snare it before blocks, ensuring that you take the 3 damage and drop down to 9 life. And this is starting to get a little sketchy here for Jeremy.
Yeah, Ben continues pushing damage through, continues looting to try to make his land drops.
Uh-oh, Jeremy Pri's going to battle here. Both Reflector Mages hitting Ben down to 16, and then a pass of the turn with no land drop once again for Jeremy. What does he have up his sleeve? Well, first things first for Ben, he's going to activate his Smuggler's Copter, go to attacks, and attack with both the Thraben Inspector and the Copter. He's going to discard a Selfless Spirit. Ah,
wow, this is an unusual card. Essence Flux.
Yeah, you don't see this every day. He's going to target his Reflector Mage with it. He won't get the +1/+1 counter bonus because it's not, well, there's 2 reasons now. A, it's not a spirit, but B, it's also not on the battlefield anymore. So, bit of a blowout there.
Yeah,
in
just
Ben Hull's direction.
a clean 2 for 1 there.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Pri's life total continues to drop.
Yeah, he is down to 5 right now. There's that Shrine, but that's not going to be active for a little while. Ooh, here's a nice one, though. Sky Sovereign.
Yeah, unfortunately for Jeremy, it cannot kill the Smuggler's Copter, and that's the main threat attacking his life total right now.
Interestingly, Jeremy continues to attack on the ground with his Reflector Mage. He took 1 extra damage last turn by attacking with both. And if Ben has a creature to play pre-combat, he may take an additional damage here as well.
Oh, wow. It looks like Ben is very close to having lethal here because he has in his hand Pia Nalar. So with 1 extra mana, he could use that to crew the Copter and use the 2 mana Fire Breathing ability to deal that extra point of damage. But it looks like he doesn't have an untapped land.
No, he might be able to find it with the Copter, but then, of course, it's too late to get lethal here. So he may take a different route.
Can I share something that makes me very happy right now?
Absolutely.
Ben Hull is playing the exact deck list that I used to win the Star City Games Classic a few weeks ago.
Really? He's playing your list?
Yep. Card for card.
God, that's got to feel good.
Yeah. I had to double check, but yep, complete with 2 Always Watchings. This is a deck that I call dwarves instead of vehicles. No fleet wheel cruisers, no black mana splash. It's just a really nice, well-balanced deck, and Ben's doing well with it.
Yeah, he really is. He's 11-2 and has put himself in a mighty fine position here against Jeremy Fry in game 1. I believe Jeremy's down to 1. There we go. And he's picking him up. That's going to do it for game 1. Ben Hull, off to the very quick start, never relinquished that lead during the course of the game, and finds the win pretty convincingly there.
It looked for a while like Jeremy might be able to stabilize based on Ben missing a key land drop in the early game. But the turn where he went for the Essence Flux and Ben was prepared with Stasis Snare, that was the key moment that allowed Ben to continue pushing through damage.
Yeah, that was a savage beating. Like you said, a nice clean 2-for-1, and it's a good way to lose the game of Magic. On the other side of our table here, we've got Christopher Hopkins, and looks like that game just ended as well. Peter McGinnis.
Playing a different take on red-white vehicles. He had the Scrap Heap Scroungers, which are becoming more and more popular.
And we're back on our main table. So since both tables are shuffling, we'll be here for the next few minutes. Looking at Ben Hull's list, since, well, you made it, what would you consider its weaknesses as a deck?
Well, its weaknesses is that it's an aggressive deck, but it's not the fastest aggressive deck in the format. So you can't really punish decks like Aetherworks Marvel quite like the faster Mardu vehicles or the decks with counter spells can. And it's also a little bit it's close but disadvantaged against Black-Green Delirium. The matchup that Ben Hull is playing right now, though, I would say is where the deck is going to excel, just winning a fair creature battle. And it is fast enough that you're going to be hard-pressed to take a turn off for something like Panharmonicon. Fast enough that if you can disrupt a key combo with a removal spell like we saw in game 1, you're going to be able to close the game pretty quickly. Looking at things from the other perspective, we had heard from some of the other Panharmonicon players that aggressive decks are their scariest matchups. And I think that's true of Jeremy Fry's deck as well. He's definitely geared for the late game. His deck is perhaps even more of a late game deck than Seth Manfield's is. By the time he hits 7 lands, he's got his Shrine of Forsaken Gods online. He can start casting 10 mana worth of spells, double triggering things off of Panharmonicon. He has Eldrazi Displacers to control the game. So Ben's strategy has to be to not let him get to that point. One cool card that's in Ben's sideboard, I'm not sure if we'll see it this matchup or not, is Reckless Bushwhacker.
Oh, yeah?
Just to speed up the clock against well-controlled decks heavy on Planeswalkers, and anything where you just really need to win the game as quickly as possible. So we'll see if he turns to those or continues playing more of a fair and balanced game plan.
All right, players are examining their opening hands as we gear up for game number 2. Again, just to set the stage here, both players are 11-2. We had over 1,500 players in the tournament, meaning that a loss here will almost certainly eliminate them from top 8 competition. And there's a decent chance that these players have to win this match plus the next one to make it in.
Wow, and this is just what Ben wants.
Wow.
While red-white is a very consistent and reliable deck, it does perform hugely better when you have this start. Toolcraft Exemplar in particular, just devastating 1-drop. You're not really supposed to have 3 power on a 1-drop in Standard. And turn 2 Smuggler's Copter, we know from a huge variety of decks, is a game changer.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better here for Jeremy either. He really needs to find some answers. Is he going to start off by casting Fragmentize? That relieves at least a little bit of the pressure.
Mm-hmm. And if Ben Hull doesn't have a follow-up artifact, it's going to take the wind out of the sails of his aggression almost completely. Yeah.
Oh, that did happen. All right. So now he's only taking 1, or he could have been taking 6 this turn had he not had that Fragmentize. And there's a Veteran Motorist now for Ben Hall. He's going to get that scry value first. We'll see where he decides to put these cards.
I love Veteran Motorist. You just have such a safe, secure feeling when it's in your opening hand. You know you're not going to miss your land drops. You're not going to flood out. Everything's going to be smooth and reliable. And it's a 3-1. Hits pretty hard.
And here we get to see potentially the weakness of these Panharmonicon decks. Jeremy has effectively taken turn 4 off. He tapped all of his mana and nothing happened. Now, he doesn't get fully punished. He's taking 4 damage, which is significant, but there was no artifact there for Ben.
Yeah, that's a turn where Ben would have loved a Fleet Wheel Cruiser, but he actually doesn't play it, electing for Gideon instead.
Yeah, 4 damage versus 6 is pretty good. Here's another Veteran Motorist.
That looks like both bottom.
Okay. It's good news for Jeremy. But more bad news for him. This board has gotten pretty impressive. 9 damage as it sits. Could be a couple of more with an artifact.
Selfless Spirit relevant here because if Jeremy has Sky Sovereign, he can still only kill 1 creature since they'll all become indestructible once the Selfless Spirit gets cashed in.
Right. He will get 2 triggers from Panharmonicon, but like you said, let's go away. So what we have here is Reflector Mage with 2 triggers of its own. And this is a nice start to the comeback here for Jeremy Fry. You know, he'd love to see a Cloudblazer of some sort here at some time here to get a bunch of life and cards in his hand. But right now, the board matters, and he needs to deal with it. So Ben actually offers the trade, Veteran Motorist, for Reflector Mage, and Jeremy obliges him. Ooh, here's Gideon. Is that going to resolve? Oh, yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we'll see which 4-drop proves to be more powerful in this game.
In the fight between Panharmonicon and Gideon.
This
like
turn,
Gideon came to the fight ready to start punching. Oh, here, this is interesting. A Drowner of Hope, Reed.
Yeah, that's going to make 4 1/1 Scion tokens.
That's impressive.
Seems to have made 3. I don't think that's really a possible thing that can happen.
I think they're just tracking down the additional
there we
one
go.
for him. Yeah. Yeah, the math didn't work out super well on 3 of them. But again, the Panharmonicon getting a double trigger there means that he gets 4 of them. And he can really use these in a nice way to not only pressure Gideon, but also make sure he doesn't take damage.
So this is the play pattern of the Panharmonicon deck. You take the turn off for Panharmonicon, you fall behind, then you want to have a card like Drowner of Hope to stabilize the board for you. Then the following turn, if you can play another card and get the value of a double trigger, that's when you really start to take control of the game.
Yeah, this one he went turn 4 Panharmonicon, turn 5 Reflector Mage, 2 things away to make sure that he had the time to go turn 6 Drowner of Hope. And this is the turn that you were just referring to, Reed. This is the one where if he casts something really powerful, things just get completely out of hand. Oh, that one's not going to trigger anything at the moment, but by God, it will shortly enough. And what he has now is he has a combo set up, Reed.
Wow.
Do you see what he just did?
Yeah, so every time Drowner of Hope enters the battlefield, it produces 4 1/1 Scion tokens, representing 4 mana, if he wants. And Eldrazi Displacer only costs you 3 mana to blink the Drowner of Hope.
Yep.
So every cycle you go through, you net 1 Scion token until you have as many as you choose.
Enter the infinite, indeed. So he made, effectively infinite tokens. And since Ben could not kill him the next turn, he scooped him up. He didn't have any outs to that. And he was going to take 100 million?
Yeah.
200 million? All right, let's jump over to our other game. And people have brought some nice ones this weekend, Reed. We've seen multiple different Panharmonicon brews, including one with an infinite combo now that we've just saw go off.
Oh, I love it.
The Metallurgic Summonings deck that we watched, that was pretty sweet. There's a green-white Humans deck around. There's also a blue-white Humans deck.
we're pretty deep into the season of Kaladesh Standard, but I still remember the excitement of the set being pitched, and part of it was that, okay, this is Kaladesh, the world of inventors, and you get to be the inventor when you play Magic. You get to pair these super interesting, complicated cards together in whatever way you choose, and you get to make the most of all the tools available to you. And Jeremy Fry is doing that in style.
I like it.
This is a bit more of a classic matchup here between Red-Green, Aetherworks Marvel, and an aggressive Mardu Vehicles deck. Peter McGinnis won the first game with, I guess, an aggressive start. We didn't get to watch that one. But now things are looking a lot closer.
No Marvel on the battlefield for Christopher, but he does have a couple of mana producers / blockers, and he's got a Vessel to dig.
Yeah, so he's done a nice job developing both his mana and his energy count. He has the Vessel, which can dig him towards a Marvel, and he has a Chandra Torch of Defiance in his hand, which he can choose from a variety of options what to do with that one.
No, he has not hit on that dig for the Marvel.
No, although he has 6 lands in play. The Vessel's doing a nice job filling... Sorry, 6 mana sources in play. The Vessel's doing a nice job filling his graveyard. He's surely not that far away from hardcasting Emrakul.
Does pop up on you pretty quickly, and at 17 life, you got to figure he's going to have the wiggle room to do so.
So we have instant sorcery land enchantment. He could probably afford to trade off one of the Servants of the Conduit. He has a Chandra in his hand, which might add an additional type or an additional 2 mana, whichever he wants.
We saw that earlier in the day, that Chandra using the other ability to make a couple of red mana for Steve Rubin was proved to be a critical turn for him in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Christopher uses that next turn, assuming that Chandra survives. Which it looks like pretty unlikely that she will, but Christopher buying himself a bunch of time by killing a Scrap Heap Scrounger and maybe soaking up a little attack here.
But I like that Christopher Hopkins is almost daring Peter McGinnis to kill the Chandra here. He visibly took the Emrakul, the Promised End, off of the Vessel, and then played a Planeswalker with 1 loyalty. Go ahead, kill it. You know, see what happens.
No problem. Yeah, it does move him very, very close. That would give him 5 types in the graveyard with 6 mana sources, so just a couple away from casting Emrakul. Peter has to try to weigh it out, because the problem is if he doesn't kill Chandra, then she just adds 2 mana anyway.
Good point.
and,
yeah,
and
sure,
he still has a
surely he
Planeswalker.
is forced to take the bait and kill the Chandra.
Yeah.
But he's going to be careful with this turn, think hard about his sequencing here. The Smuggler's Copter's turns are always pretty challenging because you are incentivized to play a creature pre-combat in order to crew, but you still want to keep your options open in case you loot into something even better to play post-combat. So he's going to start with Depala here.
Okay, let's jump back over to our first match. Reed, we're going to have to let this one go just because they're kind of in the middle stages and it wasn't really clear where it was going yet, and I want to make sure we catch the thrilling Game 3 conclusion here between Ben Hull and Jeremy Fry.
Okay, Ben has another good start here. Not quite as good as he had last game with the turn 1 Toolcraft Exemplar, but turn 2 Smuggler's Copter with a creature ready to go to crew it is just where you want to be. Jeremy has the right answer and Fragmentize.
Just taking another little chunks of damage here from the Inspector. Yeah, a pretty tame draw, all told, thanks to that Fragmentize.
Yeah, we're playing fair now.
Jeremy, on the other side, is looking to play as unfairly as possible, but it can be hard to do. He's going to just keep things simple here and use his Reflector Mage to keep Selfless Spirit back in hand for Ben Hull and keep it from attacking him next turn. So just buying time, doing his thing. It's a nice little stabilizing play. He doesn't take anything on the ground and nothing in the air either.
Ben would love to be able to slam a Gideon here, but it doesn't look like he's able to have that powerful of a play on this turn.
Ben, of course, on the play. Yeah, not an amazing turn for him once again.
Yeah, those creatures don't match up particularly well against Reflector Mage. Though if Ben has one more artifact, his Toolcraft Exemplar can become a 3/2 first strike.
Yeah. You know, I got to say, when I think of a 1-mana 3/2, that is not the face I think of.
Man, both players stuck on 3 lands, Marshall.
Yeah, this could get interesting. Should punish Jeremy significantly more than it will Ben, right?
Right. Jeremy's mana is also awkward. He had to use his 1 energy with the Ether Hub to cast Reflector Mage, and now he's stuck with a white mana and 2 colorless. No Stasis Snares, no Spell Quellers.
And no Wild Nacatls either. Just traded off for the Reflector Mage.
Oh, wow. I wonder if that was...
Ooh, was that a little misstep there from Ben, or did he have something that he maybe wanted to keep up? Or of course, what we're referring to is that he played the Smuggler's Copter in his second main phase. Had he played it in his first, his Toolcraft Exemplar would get its Power Toughness bonus, but also first strike.
Right, so he could have forced through the Reflector Mage if he wanted to, but it's not even that bad of a trade for him because it unlocks the attacks with the Thraben Inspectors. That was Spatial Contortion, taking care of Smuggler's Copter. Or, sorry, was it Selfless Spirit?
It was the Selfless Spirit, that's right.
But I'll be honest with you, it's extremely rare to have the first strike ability come up with Toolcraft Exemplar in this deck, so it's possible that it's just not a detail that's really on Ben's radar. I'm not too sure.
Okay. Well, we'll see if it comes back to get him. He did end up trading it off rather than cleanly attacking through.
Wow, the awkwardness of Jeremy Fry's hand here. He's
so bad.
Stuck on mana. He's stuck on colors. He has 2 Copters with nothing to crew them.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody so jealous of those 2 Thraben Inspectors. He'd kill for one of those. Uh-oh, and there's Depala for Ben Hull. This is one of the last turns that Jeremy's going to get. If he can't find his way out of this, he has a board that just does stone nothing. And as we know, his deck, and he has cards like Panharmonicon in his deck that if he has those at this time, then they don't do anything either. So, yeah, no land drop there from Jeremy. And you mentioned it, super awkward. He even drew a card that he'd love to play here, a Reflector Mage, and he just doesn't have the mana for it. Not good.
His deck's very mana hungry. He has a couple copies of Pilgrim's Eye too, but he hasn't been able to find one of those.
There's a Thraben Inspector.
Yep, so this is nice. This can take him a couple cards deeper. That is, if Ben Hull is not prepared with a removal spell for the Smuggler's Copter.
And is Jeremy obliged to just stay back for blocking here?
He should be worried about attacking as well because, as you see, Ben Hull has 5 lands and a Needle Spire, but conspicuously did not attack with the Needle Spire. And that's why Archangel Avacyn.
Yep.
And I think Ben is dead on the board here because he can only produce 1 blocker, and Needle Spires plus the creatures on the table represent a lethal attack.
So he chump blocks Archangel Avacyn or eats the Needle Spire, or trades with the Needle Spiders rather, and then it's 4, 7, 8, 9. Game.
Looks like it. There's not much for 1 white mana that Ben Hull has to be worried about here.
Well, things are looking good for Ben Hull with this exquisitely crafted red-white deck that he's got. And this is a lethal attack. Everybody's in. He even activated Depala just for completeness sake. And that does it. Ben Hull advances Jeremy Fry. Now, he still has a lot to play for in the last round, but top 8 will not be on the docket for him.
That's right. And Ben Hull, our Pro Tour Kaladesh top 8 competitor, gets 1 step closer to standard Grand Prix top 8.
Which is really great for him. Coming into the tournament, he had 6 slots open. That's all of them for GPs. And he needs, 6 points, I think is what we heard, to get to gold in the Pro Players Club, which has significant benefits going into next season.
Yeah. If he wins a couple more rounds, he won't even need those other 5 slots. He could just do it today.
Yeah. Yeah, our showrunner, Mark Calderaro, actually had a chat with him where he said he was actually pretty happy already just picking up 2 or 3 points that he's locked up, because that's a big chunk of the points that he needs, and he knows that with the rest of the GPs he can play in, he should be able to get it. But like you said, just getting it in 1 shot seems even better. Okay, so let's take a look at Peter McGinnis versus Christopher Hopkins. Looks like Peter won game 1.
Yeah, and this is the same game 2 that we checked in on a while ago, still going. Looks like Christopher Hopkins has hard cast that Emrakul as was shaping up to be the case when we last checked in. And it does also look like Christopher is going to be able to close this game out with Emrakul.
So Emrakul's on the battlefield. We're in Peter's turn, but Emrakul had been there the turn prior, or are we not controlling his turn here?
Well, when we tuned in, Peter's hand was flat on the table for everyone to see, so I would assume that we just played the Emrakul turn, decimated Peter McGinnis's board, and now Peter has to try to rebuild.
And what we're looking at are the leftovers.
Yes. But one cool card that I did see in his hand was Key to the City.
I did see that too.
So Christopher Hopkins' life total is close to being in range.
Unfortunately, so is Peter McGinnis's.
Exactly. So he's got to find a way to kill Christopher over the course of 2 turns while also not dying himself.
So tricky. Yeah, Emrakul just hits so darn hard.
Veteran motorist would love to find Stasis Snare or Declaration in Stone on the top.
Okay, there's that Key to the City. Getting in for 3. It's going to drop Christopher down to 6. And does Peter have enough blocks on board here?
On the board, yes. He can take. He can block the 2 Servants of the Conduit, take 15 damage down to 1. So that puts Christopher Hopkins in a position where he can't attack with everything.
Right.
He may have to attack with only Emrakul.
Well, and you're saying that because of the Needle Spires? Because if he attacks with everything, he does force blocks on both of the 2 creatures, but it would leave Peter with Scrounger and
yes, exactly.
Needle Spires. Okay.
And he, the Needle Spires alone or the Scrounger alone is not going to be lethal, even with Key to the City. But if Christopher Hopkins leaves himself with actually 0 blockers, Peter McGinnis can just say, okay, attack you with both.
Right. So Chris is going to take the more conservative route here. He realized, I can't kill you this turn no matter what. So instead, I'm going to try to kill you over the course of 2 turns while maintaining as many blockers as I can. He plays one of the 2 Aetherworks Marvels he has in his hand. Doesn't do anything here, though.
No, not yet. If some creatures die in combat, that will give him a little bit more energy. But it doesn't look like that's going to be a deciding factor in this game. The question is just, can Peter McGinnis find a way to not die to the Emrakul, and then he can win the game over the course of 2 turns via Key to the City.
Right.
Draw an extra card. Really looking for Stasis Snare, Declaration in Stone. Can he find it?
Doesn't look like he did. At least he hasn't cast either of them yet.
There's no blocking that Emrakul.
No, that will not work. He needs to either kill Christopher right now or get rid of Emrakul to do it next turn. He's close.
If he has an untapped land, he can crack a clue for 1 more shot.
At a Declaration in Stone?
Right.
Okay. That's what he's going to do. Oh, and he just looked at the card immediately, scooped him up. So that means we're going to get a game 3. Christopher Hopkins hanging on there.
And that was one of the first games that we've seen an Aetherworks Marvel deck win without Aetherworks Marvel. That was just fair and square, hard cast Emrakul, couple defensive creatures.
A little bit of mana ramp in there with the Servants of the Conduit. Yeah, that did the job.
Key to the City is one of Peter McGinnis's key sideboard cards in this matchup, allowing him to force damage through an Ishkanah Graph Widow or anything like that. Peter also has 2 Reckless Bushwhackers in his sideboard, which presumably will come in against the Marvel deck just to speed up the Goldfish. Sorry, he actually has 2 Key to the Cities listed separately in his sideboard.
Oh, he got you. Yeah.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah, they'll get you sometimes, Reed. You'll get used to that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's that is impressive.
Yeah, Rashad points out if you copy your deck list from Magic Online and have 1 foil, 1 non-foil Key to the City, it will list it twice like that.
So, round 14 here. We'll finish up this one, and that'll set the stage for the next round, which will determine our top 8 competitors, see who's in and who's out. We should have a full slate of win and ins.
Yeah, we're still not 100% sure what record will and won't make the top 8. A lot of times 13-2 puts you in good shape, but it's not guaranteed that all of the 13-2s will make the top 8. We'll have to see exactly what the standings look like after this round. Either way, the winner of this match is in great shape.
Looking at the tournament floor, most of our good chunk of our matches are done at our top tables. I do see the calculator out there still battling.
Good for him.
Yeah, happy birthday to Christian as well. It's Christian Calcano's birthday today.
Most definitely.
He's playing against Canadian Paul Dean.
Oh, I like both those guys. I was a fan of Paul Dean's deck. It was a Teamer energy control deck that we watched yesterday.
That's right.
But Christian Calcano, yeah, it's his birthday. He told us that he had practiced especially hard for this tournament. So I think it would be a big moment for Christian Calcano and Christian Calcano fans if he was able to convert to the top 8.
We're both on that list.
Definitely.
Calc's great. One of the nice guys out here on the tour. Okay, looks like our players are just about ready. Peter McGinnis, though, on the play.
That's what he wants.
Yeah, Etherworks Marvel deck. You got to feel like he's favored.
I think so, yes. The Marvel deck, the red-green Marvel deck in particular, does have a lot of nice anti-aggro measures, but sometimes the red-white vehicles deck or the Mardu vehicles deck is just a little too fast, a little too brutal for it to handle, and Christopher Hopkins is taking a mulligan. Peter McGinnis looks satisfied with his hand.
So when your opponent mulligans, Reed, are you in the 5-5-5-5-5-5 camp, or do you just focus on your own game plan?
Yeah, I focus on my own game plan. I don't know. It's a tough question. I mean, winning is really important, and
to you, I mean,
you
put a lot of time and effort in.
Definitely, I'm a competitor at heart, and I want to win, but a lot of times more important at the end of a Magic tournament is being proud of yourself and the way you played, and not so much the result, because results can be determined by, mana screw or a mulligan or a lucky top deck here and there, and those are things you don't have any control over. I'd much rather focus on myself and just playing the best game of Magic that I can, and if my opponent mulligans, they mulligan. If they have a good draw, they have a good draw. It's not really something I have control over.
All right, well, it looks like Chris has kept a 6 here. No 1-drop from Peter McGinnis, but he's got both or 2 of his colors available. And a nice start here for Chris. He does have a 1-drop. He's got Attune with Ether. Yeah,
so as things were not looking great a second ago, he was mulliganing on the draw against a fast deck. They're looking a little better now. Peter didn't have a Toolcraft Exemplar on turn 1, and Chris was able to keep a nice 6-card hand, including both colors of mana, a removal spell, and Harnessed Lightning. And yeah, he's gonna live to fight a real game of Magic here.
Good. I want to see a real game of Magic. I know everybody at home does as well. Interesting to see if he just passes the turn here. If Peter plays a creature, does he actually get in the copter or not? You know, a card like Harness Lightning seems plausible.
Yeah, I would. It would require a lot of discipline to not attack with the Smuggler's Copter. A, your opponent mulligans, so there is some chance they just have an awkward draw. B, they're playing Aetherworks Marvel. You got to get them dead.
That's right. You don't have the luxury of hoping, playing around stuff. This is interesting. It wouldn't have mattered anyway because he happened to have Depala. But it also wouldn't have mattered either way because Christopher had a natural state anyway. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. So that means that Chris is taking 0 damage this turn.
So he
Peter
plays a
passes
land.
it. Excuse me. Yeah, so Peter passes it, plays the land, passes it back. Now he's facing down to Paula.
An interesting dynamic here with the Harness Lightning, which is almost certainly going to get pointed at DePaula. Does Christopher Hopkins use it before DePaula attacks, before the trigger can go on the stack? Or does he say, all right, if you want to spend your turn looking for more dwarves and vehicles, that's fine. At least the pressure is off of me. He decides to limit Peter's options by killing it pre-combat, which is a play I like. Better safe than sorry with that regard.
Right. Ooh, there's a key piece of the puzzle off the top of the library, though, for Christopher. Can't cast it now, but that was an Ishkanah.
Very nice.
Yeah, right now he has access to Chandra as well if he'd like to take down that Scrap Heap Scrounger.
But unclear what his best play might be with the Chandra. A play that I see that has some appeal is he could play the Chandra +2 to make 2 mana and point Harness Lightning at Scrap Heap Scrounger. The advantage of that is it gives him a really high chance of being able to untap next turn with Chandra still in play. Peter would have no creature to crew the Copter, and even if he has a 5th land, which could potentially activate Needle Spires, it's still only going to be the Spires or the Smuggler's Copter attacking.
Right. Yeah, that's the line.
I like it.
Harness Lightning, he even gets an energy out of the deal.
And no black mana in sight to return the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Yeah, that's nice too. Some of it enters the battlefield tapped as well for Peter, which could delay that another turn.
Wow, if Peter has nothing besides a tapped land this turn.
Oh,
wow.
Brutal.
What a key moment.
Chris could not draw that card quickly enough after having the turn pass back to him here, Reed.
There are very few combinations of cards Peter McGinnis could have had in his hand that would not allow him to do anything on this turn, but it's so big, such a miracle for Christopher Hopkins that he gets to take no damage on this turn, untap with a Planeswalker on 5 counters, and from his early mulligan, he is now looking to be in great shape.
Yeah, now he can use Chandra's ability to make mana once again if he wants. Now, he looks like he's got maybe a land in his hand I couldn't quite see, but he could cast Ishkanah if he wanted. He's going to wait, I think, until he gets to Delirium, though. Right now, he only has 2 creature types in his graveyard, so he would prefer to just hang back behind Chandra, it seems.
Okay, so back comes the Scrap Heap Scrounger. This can crew Smuggler's Copter and continue attacking. Allow Peter to continue attacking.
Peter's forced to pressure Chandra, it looks like. And she's just going to take 3. I see. So, interestingly, while Peter had that one big kind of flop of a turn, you know, Chris, he's looking at a hand with Emrakul and Ishkanah in it.
Right, and he only had a come into play tap land on turn 5 here. Wasn't actually able to do anything with the free turn of Breathing Room that he bought himself.
I mean, he could have cast Ishkanah just straight up. Not super appealing.
Oh, by using Chandra's mana ability.
Right.
Good point.
And, you know, it's not the most appealing thing. You really want to try to get to Delirium, but he's 2 card types away from Delirium right now, and he needs a blocker. I'm wondering if he's just going to cast the Ishkana. His draw step was another Chandra. Maybe he could chain some things together. How much mana can he get up to?
Well, he can't actually net mana by casting the second Chandra. So he's working with 7 this turn.
Okay.
He could -3 to kill a Scrounger and then play the second copy of Chandra, but that's not even that great.
No, it's really not.
I think maybe he should just plus and if he doesn't hit anything, play Ishkana.
Well,
I would certainly cast that since he's going to break even on mana, and he doesn't really care about 2 damage to Peter McGinnis at this point in the game. Okay, so up to 5 energy and 6 mana, which is unlocking more and more powerful draws off the top of his library.
good news for Christopher is that he's at 20. So he knows he's going to get a few draw steps over the course of the next few turns to try to piece something together, but he does need to find some action.
Yeah, and actually just with the cards he has access to now, let's say the Nightmare scenario occurs and Peter's able to fight through and kill the Chandra.
Okay.
That's a 3rd card type in the graveyard. He can play the redundant one from his hand, and that represents an extra 2 mana if he can untap with it. He's getting real close to the Emrakul.
Yeah, interestingly as well, you mentioned if he fights through the Ishkana. Well, if Ishkana dies, that's another card type in the yard that he doesn't currently have.
Right.
So, yeah, he could be working his way up quite quickly, actually. All right,
okay, so that's a removal spell that doesn't put the creature in the graveyard. That's good for Peter and bad for Christopher.
Right. And that does mean that Chandra will end up in the graveyard. 6 damage.
Wow, some real back and forths in this game.
Absolutely.
That's a 3rd card type. Problem is, if Christopher doesn't draw something relevant here, he's not going to be able to protect his Planeswalker. He's not going to be able to untap with the extra 2 mana available to him.
Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot was the draw read.
All right, buys a little bit of extra time and turns Aetherworks Marvel on as a really powerful draw he could have next turn.
Is it worth it to cast Chandra as well? He can only hit things off the top of his library that cost 1 or 2 mana.
Yeah, basically, Chandra and Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot are kind of the same card here. Either one's just going to gain him a few life but not accomplish much.
Right.
I'd be inclined to save the Chandra just in case I can draw a removal spell or something to help me protect her.
This way, you're just going to cast a Puzzle Knot, pass, crack the Puzzle Knot at some point, get a bunch of energy and 6 life, negate some or most of an attack from Peter, and then hope to hit next turn.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let's see what Christopher decides to do. He's mulling over his decisions at the moment.
Peter McGinnis is in a good spot here because even when he runs out of cards in his hand, he's got 2 creature lands that he can turn to, and he's got a clue on the battlefield. The Scrap Heap Scroungers, even if they die, they're coming back. So it's going to be hard for his opponent to shut him down and completely stop the aggression.
Looks like Chris is considering going big here and just casting Chandra. Oh, pulled it back. No, he is going to cast Chandra. So let's see what line he has. He's going to kill one of the Scroungers. And of course he gets to play the Puzzle Knot here as well. So back up to 20 for him. And like you said, Chandra's going to be a distraction.
Yeah, so the advantage of killing the Scrounger is if Peter wants to bring it back, which he actually does not have any more creatures in the graveyard right now, so he can't bring it back for a while. And even if he did want to, it would cost some mana, perhaps turning off Needle Spires as an attacker for a turn.
Right.
So you can see him cutting his mana as though he's all set to fire up the Needle Spires.
And that is exactly what he does. So the Smuggler's Copter is going to go at Chandra, reserving 7 other damage for Chris. Yeah, feels like Chris is quite up against it here. Now, he does have draws, though, that can be pretty explosive, right? I mean, the Aetherworks Marvel off the top
That's his best draw.
can get him right back in it.
But still no Delirium, so Ishkanah's not quite yet a great draw, and that would have been another advantage of, instead of casting Chandra, just using the Puzzle Knot, as it would be a 4th card type in the graveyard.
Yeah, he's still pretty far away from casting an Emrakul as well, so that's unlikely to be a great plan. Oh, Reckless Bushwhacker got discarded there to the Copter, it looks like.
Okay.
But yeah, Chris.
Oh, it is a Marvel.
He found an Aetherworks Marvel off the top. Oh, dear God.
Doesn't put him out of the woods, but it gives him a real fighting chance.
Yes. Now, is he in the position to activate it immediately, or does it? Well, he answered the question for me. He's going over to his opponent's turn here.
I would have activated immediately. Well, with the caveat that I haven't stopped to think about it a long time, but
Sure.
I would have wanted to put myself in the best possible position if I did hit Emrakul.
Where you could take that next turn here. It's delayed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I bet you that's what Peter's reading up. What happens if you get this thing now?
So,
Oh, this is sweet.
if Christopher does hit Emrakul at instant speed, the way it's going to work is Christopher will untap for his turn as normal. Then he'll control Peter's next turn after.
Yep.
Then Peter will take the extra turn.
Yep. All right, here we go. Peter says, well, I don't have a choice. I'm in there.
So I like that Christopher Hopkins lets him declare his attackers. This way, if he hits a great blocker like Emrakul or Ishkanah, then he can
What was that
block and
last
eat some
card?
creatures.
Yeah, the best thing you hit was a Servant of the Conduit?
Yeah, this is bad. It's
Oh,
not what he's
no.
hoping for. And he could have taken another Marvel and Legend rule, but still would only have 4 energy.
Yeah, he'd get the same amount. So he takes the card that can block the Scrounger. And remember, he's got the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot sitting there. So assuming he survives this turn, which he absolutely should,
Yeah, you know that
He'll get
the
to spin
previous
again.
turn when he cast the Chandra, killed the Scrap Heap Scrounger. He had his reasons for that, and so far that's prevented 9 damage to him, 2 attacks from the Scrounger, and the 1 attack that had to go at Chandra. But there would have been a lot of advantages to cracking the Puzzle Knot as well.
yes.
If he had the extra energy here, he could have taken another Marvel and had another shot right away.
Right. Now he has to wait, but he does get another shot at it. This one's not done yet. Now, are we going to see him main phase it this time now that there's a Gideon on the other side of the battlefield? I'm curious.
Well, normally we might, but he drew a card that gives him additional options, which is Traverse the Ulvenwald.
is it a Vessel or a Traverse that he drew?
Yeah, maybe I missaw. Yeah,
I think it was
you're
a
absolutely
Vessel.
right.
Okay.
But still, this gives him some options because the Vessel going to the graveyard can give him 1 extra energy. So if he wanted, he could have cracked the Vessel looking for, say, another Puzzle Knot or Servant of the Conduit. But it looks like he probably figures his best move is going to be to pay the 3 mana and crack the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot either way. So he might as well wait.
Of course, he's trying to ambush a creature with whatever he hits, right? And force Peter into just making the all-in play of sending in his team like he did last time.
Instant sorcery, creature, planeswalker. There are some combinations of cards he could hit off the Vessel that will allow him to hard cast Emrakul next turn.
Okay, he'll want that information ahead of time. All right, so he's at the requisite number, and now he gets to dig around.
And he mills a Kozilek's return,
Oh,
setting
that could
himself
get
up
interesting.
for an even bigger hit if he can either find off the Marvel or hard cast the Emrakul next turn.
Oh. Yeah, that goes in your hand. There you go. Okay, and here we go. Activate the Marvel. See if we can hit something huge. He did. Emrakul is the
yeah.
last card, and that means he gets to trigger the Kozilek's return in his graveyard. There it goes.
Man, talk about backs and forths. There have been
Oh.
points in this game where I was sure that both players, that one player was going to win, and then the other player was definitely going to win, and then now Christopher's definitely going to win, but I've said that before. I don't know. This game is just crazy.
Yeah, this is the big question. Does Peter have a stasis snare? Because otherwise, you can see what happens there.
So he keeps coming with Gideon. That's a big attack, and we are going to see that interesting dynamic that I described a second ago, where Christopher untaps, takes his turn, then he passes to Peter, takes Peter's turn with the Emrakul Mindslaver ability, then Peter will get an additional turn after that.
But this gets really interesting because normally when this turn happens, the player who, the Emrakul player will have an Emrakul in play, and right now Christopher doesn't have any creatures at all.
Right, and we've seen in some Emrakul turns earlier in this tournament that Gideon is sort of an annoying card. There's a lot of times not a lot you can profitably do when the opponent has Gideon in play.
Yeah, sometimes you see the best case scenario simply be, I'll make an emblem just to get rid of Gideon himself, but that emblem sticks around. It can be really annoying later on.
And in this case, Peter's...
Look at this.
Wow.
How does this work? So he plays another Emrakul, but he was supposed to control his next turn anyway.
So I believe the way this works is he controls Peter's turn, and then Peter gets 2 additional turns to manage on his own.
So he doesn't get to control 2 of his turns. It's just the next turn that he gets.
Yeah, correct.
Bummer.
2 instances of controlling this turn, but those, having 2 doesn't really...
That does not stack favorably for Chris, does it?
No, I mean, Chris has enough things going right for him in this game that he might still do fine, but this particular interesting interaction is going to work in Peter's favor, where he'll get 3 turns in a row.
There is a judge down there, by the way. This is funny. This has been one of the swingiest games we've had all weekend.
Definitely. When you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. So yeah, my interpretation is definitely that Christopher gets to control only 1 turn, Peter gets to control 2 turns after.
That's how I read it too.
So what can Christopher do with Peter's turn to damage him the most? He can certainly suicide attack Needle Spires. He can attack a Needle Spires into the Emrakul. And there's not really much else.
Interesting. So what has happened here, Reed, just by way of update, is that the players were like, all right, what the heck happens here, right? Because this happens so infrequently. So they said, judge, which is what you're supposed to do when you have a rules question. And the judge said, this is word for word, Reed Duke is absolutely correct. No, they can't hear us. So, but he did. The judge that came over gave the same ruling that we came up with together here in the booth based on reading the card, which is that Christopher will get to control Peter's next turn, and then Peter will take 2 additional turns after that he gets. That has been appealed.
Okay.
So they're gonna get the head judge over, and just to make sure that this is one of those very strange spots that comes up relatively rarely. So, and they want to make sure they get it right.
Even if the ruling is not overturned, this appeal is very telling because it indicates that Christopher Hopkins didn't have 100% complete grasp of what was going to happen when he made his decisions. So,
well, I would assume Peter's the one that appealed. Is that what you mean? Or
I would guess that Christopher appealed. I mean, if either player is unsure of the ruling, both players are certainly welcome to appeal. But the original ruling seemed to be in Peter's favor.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, you're totally right, Reed.
Maybe Christopher is the one who chose to appeal the ruling.
Yeah, you're right. So that is interesting. Like maybe he wouldn't have played it quite the same way had he known that you're going to get 2 turns in a row after all this.
Right, exactly.
Huh. I mean, I can't blame Chris, right? Like, he hit an Emrakul. He had a chance to play another one. He's just like, we're doing it.
How often do you cast 2 Emrakuls within 1 turn cycle?
Right. I'm not turning down that option, even if it means a judge has to come over and tell me how my cards work.
Mm-hmm.
What a crazy setup. Strange scenario. Now, have you been working your way through here in your head, by the way? What happens? Oh, hey, it looks like they're actually underway. Unless they're just...
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything profitable to do with the Gideon. I think Christopher should just end this turn without activating Gideon and without playing a land, and that's what happens, yeah. These players, I see the die indicating these players are in extra turns, or maybe that's just to count the number of turns.
Yeah, that's the... I don't know. The head judge did uphold the ruling. I just got an update from Rashad on that. So it will be, you get to control Peter's next turn, Chris, and then Peter's going to get to control the next 2 turns that he gets.
Oh my gosh, Marshall, I think Christopher Hopkins is dead here.
Is Chris dead? Don't say that. This is turn 3 of extra turns. Is this a lethal attack? Easily. Wow. Peter McGinnis won. What?
Oh my goodness, talk about backs and forths. I know I've said that 100 times in this match, but I have nothing else to say. I have no words.
Even on the last turn, it swung back in the other direction. He cast 2 Emrakuls in 1 turn cycle and promptly lost the game.
Yeah, it was because of the second extra turn, because Peter took 1 turn to rebuild his army, and then the second turn was when he actually got to attack for that lethal attack.
Fantastic stuff. I'm still baffled at how that ended.